Hello, lovelies. I'm excited. I'm doing a cover reveal today. Those of you who have been watching for a while know that I have got a book underway at the moment. Where is the book? So this is the book, Sargon, which is about Sargon of Akkad, who was the first named emperor in history that we know of. It's kind of a reimagining, but quite strongly rooted and based in history. And this was my placeholder attempt at a cover. I am not a cover designer, can you tell? So really the idea behind it is very ancient Mesopotamia, so about 4,000 years ago, at least. And he started off life, he had a Moses story where he was found in a river in a basket and he was adopted. And so I wanted something that gave a sense of history, which is what this book does indeed do. And also it's a saga of war, revenge, all the good things, and so I wanted a lot of blood in there because you can see here it's quite important to me that the cup had blood coming out of it, because he rose from being sort of a very lowly gardener to being the cupbearer for a very powerful prince, and the cupbearer was it was a very high up role. You tasted the food, so you were the food taster for the prince or the king that you served. And also the first to greet any guests who came into the palace. So I kind of like the hand of the king in Game of Thrones sort of role. So that was him, bearing a cup of blood. So that was my concept. And I went through a couple of cover designers to kind of talk things through, and just didn't quite get to where I wanted to be. And then I came across this Facebook group where cover designers were sharing their work, and I posted what I had and I said, can anybody make this better? And a lady came up to me called Lee. She runs Undercover Design, and she said, I can do that. And she'd also done in the past something that was kind of, not exactly the same, but kind of vibey or reminiscent of that period in history. So I kind of thought, okay, yeah. And it's always really, really difficult when you do something like this, because of course, from my perspective, it's a risk, because, it's quite a bit of money to give somebody if you don't get something that you really love. And of course, from the artist's perspective, it's very tricky as well, because, they could put in a lot of work and not really get paid for it if somebody doesn't like what they do. So it's kind of a real leap of trust on both sides. And I think it's also quite difficult for artists when the author has got quite a strong concept idea, because I think, I don't know, but for me as a writer, if I have complete free rein to do what I like, it's generally it's a bit relaxing. I can choose what I want to do. But if somebody comes to me and says, it must be like this, it must be like this, and has got very, very preconceived ideas, then it can get a little bit tricky, because you're like, am I going to live up to what they have in their head, kind of thing. But I am so pleased to say, honestly, working with Lee was so easy. She got what I wanted immediately and basically knocked it out of the park. It was basically, I want this, but a lot better. And she did that. So I'm about to reveal to you the cover design that she did. So here we go. This is the full wraparound paperback, and I just love it. It looks so much more menacing and sinister. And this is the Kindle edition. And as well as the Kindle edition, we've got a little audio book edition as well. So I really like these. We need to print them out just to check the colour balance, just to make sure it's not too dark, because, we want it to stand out on the shelf, but it also needs to hold that kind of sort of mysterious feel to it. So I'm so excited, I'm so chuffed, and I will absolutely leave Undercover Design's link below. I thought she did incredible work, her rates were incredibly reasonable, and I just thought it was a pleasure to work with them. So if you're looking for a book cover design, go and have a chat to Lee. Yeah, so I'm just going to wrap up this video by doing a quick book tag on AuthorTube and BookTube. You know, as friends in the community, we kind of share around questions about what you're reading and what you want to read next and answer those questions. So this book tag is called I'll Get to You Later. I got this through my friend Margaret Pinard, who tagged me in. Margaret's great. She runs a sort of a book review and author interview channel where she talks about literary things and social justice. If you're interested in climate change, she's got a reading group on there going at the moment and a discussion group about climate change. Worth going and checking that out. I'll leave a link below. So let's go through these questions. Okay, so classic book that's been on my to-read list forever. You know, there are very few classic books that I've wanted to read that I haven't yet. So my classic book list is quite short. That doesn't mean I've read a lot of classical books, but I've read the ones I feel like I wanted to, like Frankenstein, Wuthering Heights, Pride and Prejudice, that kind of thing. The one that I would probably name is The Count of Monte Cristo. And I'm a huge Alexander Dumas fan. When I was younger, I went through a massive phase of La Reine Margot. There was a film that came out with Isabelle Adjani, and I was totally there for that. That was a lovely, sumptuous French film that was just basically art on camera. It was gorgeous. And very, very bloody part of French history as well. So I watched the film, I read the book. I also read The Three Musketeers, because you have to, you know, D'Artagnan and, yeah, Porthos, Aramis and everybody. And also because when I was a child, I legitimately had the Dogtanian wallpaper on my bedroom walls. So like, all for one and one for all. Do 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 do. So yeah, so that happened, and the one that I have never read is The Count of Monte Cristo, and I've never seen the film, but the reason that I want to go through it is because it keeps coming up in other works. So in other books that I read, and sometimes in films, especially films where a young man has grown up to take revenge on somebody, it kind of feels like every now and again you hear The Count of Monte Cristo being quoted or referenced. And so it's one of those that I've always thought I should probably read, but it's also a massive book. I guess, I don't know which one's longer, Les Miserables or Count of Monte Cristo. I've definitely read Les Mis, but I don't know which one of them's bigger. None of them, neither of them could ever be bigger than The Tale of Genji. And oh, my goodness, that is Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that's a long book that feels like a long book, whereas Les Mis is a long book that I kind of got really wrapped up in and enjoyed. I don't know, Count of Monte Cristo, need to do that. Wow, that was a long answer to a short question. A book on your shelf that you haven't read yet. Right, okay, Margaret, these are not good questions for me. Have you seen my bookshelf? It is tiny. I have a tiny bookshelf, little one. This is my bookshelf. These are all of the books that are in my house. Okay, books in Rwanda are not easy to come by and they're expensive. So I don't have many. We now have a fantastic secondhand bookshop called Patchwork, so books are now a lot cheaper than they used to be, and there's a lot more variety. But this book here has been on my shelf forever, and I haven't read it. It's called Damn His Blood by Peter Moore, being a true and detailed history of the most barbarous and inhumane murder at Oddingly, and the quick and awful retribution. What a fucking title. Sorry, pardon my French, but what a title. Christ. That's practically a novel in its own right. Right, so I'm going to read the back blurb. Beautiful and almost perfectly hidden in the quiet English countryside, the village of Oddingly was an unlikely setting for a terrible crime. But on Midsummer's Day, 1806, the Reverend George Parker was shot and beaten to death, with his body left smouldering in his glebe meadows. Oh my goodness. It was a murder that, oh my goodness, wasn't on the blurb. I just, okay, added that. It was a murder that gripped everyone, from national journalists to the Home Secretary. It was a strange, stubborn case, a nail-biting true story of greed, ambition, violent highwaymen and callous murder. The investigation lasted 24 years and involved inquests, judges and coroners, each more determined than the last to solve Oddingley's most gruesome crime, or crimes, as it turned out. Okay, so something very odd happening at Oddingley. I got it because I really like the cover. I just thought it was kind of cool, kind of different. But it has been sitting on my shelf forever. I think I got it when a friend left. So people here have their books at home, and when they leave the country, books are really heavy, so they usually give them away or sell them. And I think I got this along with an entire stash of China Medieval. I believe The City in the City was in there. I really like that one. So anyway, on the shelf forever, haven't read it, should do. Okay, so another one that's pretty tough for me to answer because, again, I very rarely get physical books. But just before I went to the UK last year, I think it was last year that I got this, I was at Patchwork and I picked up this. And it's called When a Stranger Called, and it's a collection of short stories. It's got a very cool back blurb, quite short. Beyond the moon, beyond the stars, beyond all celestial life, God laughs at the plans made by man. Plans that never quite come to fruition. When he created man, he had his own plans. But if his plans as the creator never quite panned out, what are the plans of man but chaos, violence, death and destruction? I think I'm going to like this one. Yes, so it's a collection of African authors, and I noticed that one of the authors had written in the book. You can see that in my other video, and that's one of the reasons I actually picked this one up, is because I thought, oh, it's got a bit of a personal touch to it. But after I picked it up, I also noticed that there's an author in here called Unaya Mbambazi, and Mbambazi strikes me as a very Rwandan name, definitely a Bantu name, Mbambazi. But when I went online to check this, as I was preparing to make this video, I went to check it because I wanted to know, Unaya Mbambazi, where's she from? And I found her website, but it doesn't say anywhere on there where she's from. It seems to be through searching that she works in Kenya, but I don't know if she is Kenyan or if she moved to Kenya. So I'd be fascinated to know, because yeah, it would be very, very cool to have found a Rwandan author in an international collection like this. But yes, I do think I should get on this. So thanks for giving me this book tag. I think that's spurred me on. Okay, a book that a friend recommended that I haven't read yet. I'm going to have to go on to Audible now because I almost exclusively listen to audiobooks nowadays, just whilst I'm cooking, in the shower, just before I go to sleep. I just seem to have enough time to fit in audiobooks, whereas to sit and focus on a book above all else, I wish I could, but I just time-wise don't always get enough time. Right. Okay, so the book that I'm going to go with here is called Stoner by John Williams, and this is from 2023. When I went on a little walkabout, you can find the playlist below. I went on a walkabout down through Europe. I went down through The Hague, Belgium, Brussels, France, down through Spain and ended up in Morocco and then back up to Spain. It was a really cool trip. And one of the stops was in Narbonne in France, where I was catching up with two really lovely friends, Martine and Ruri. We knew each other from being VSO in Rwanda like a decade ago, 2 decades ago. Ooh, I'm old. But yeah, so I was staying with them, and Rory's nephew Michael was there, and he was this young bloke who was off exploring the world, and we had a lovely day at the beach. And I remembered that he said, I think whilst he was travelling, he was either reading it or he had read it, and he said Stoner by John Williams, and it just stuck in my head. Don't know the book, haven't read it, but I am going to at some point. Yeah. So it says here, Stoner is a 1965 novel by the American writer John Williams. It was reissued in 1972. And it says, Stoner has been categorised under the genre of the academic novel or the campus novel. I don't know what a campus novel is. Yeah, gonna give that a little read. Right, so book that you're procrastinating on. I don't quite understand this question. I'm not sure if it means a book that you're procrastinating about reading and haven't done yet, or a book that you have read and you're still thinking about. Because to me, most of the books that I procrastinate over are my own sodding books that I haven't written yet. That's my level of procrastination. But I'm going to go with it meaning a book that you read that you're still thinking about. And there is a book that I read quite a while ago now. But ever since Christmas, it's been in my mind again. And it's called Gentleman Jack by Angela Stidale, I think, is how you pronounce her name. And the reason that it came up is because my friends for Christmas bought me a bottle of bourbon called Gentleman Jack. And I've asked many people if they understand the meaning of this, and they don't. It's made by Jack Daniels. So Jack Daniels whiskey called Gentleman Jack. Now, the reason it's been on my mind is because of this biography, Gentleman Jack, which was about the life and times of Anne Lister. Now, Anne Lister was known in the UK as Gentleman Jack, and she was one of the most famous lesbians ever to have lived. And the book was... I don't know, the book was problematic. And I think I'm going to save this until Rainbow Book Month in June. But one of the reasons I found it problematic is because, on the one hand, Anne Lister, what a character. What a character. They found her diaries years after her death. She'd kind of like holed them away in a study. And people found her diaries in an age where you could study her life. Like, if people had found her diaries when she was alive, they would have burnt them, and we would never have known who Anne Lister was. But they were found in a much more progressive age, and therefore they've survived and been studied. She wrote them all in code as well. So for many, many years, people couldn't decipher her writing, didn't know what she'd written, so they had to crack the code before they could read her diaries. So in one respect, she was a fascinating person that she left us this body of work. And, you know, she did some incredible things. Like, she was the first person, I think, to scale the highest peak in the French Pyrenees. And then a couple of weeks later, a man did it. And the newspapers said that the man was the first person to scale these mountains. So in some respects, she was one hell of a character. And, you know, I really want to love her very much because she was a trailblazer for her age. But on the other hand, she treated her women so badly. Like, she treated them really mannishly. And that's not to say that all men treat women badly. They don't. But for a lesbian, I was hoping that she would just be better than that, you know, but she wasn't. She was very much a Victorian or Edwardian gadabout town. She very much evaluated women in the same way that men at the time did, in very much that kind of like, would she make a suitable wife? Would she bring a dowry with her? How much money would she bring to this relationship? Like, does she have status? Does she have intellect? And you're just looking at this going, oh God, Anne, really? You know, so on the one hand, I really want to like her, and God, she did some incredible things. But on the other hand, I'm like, ew, you know, bad attitude. But I don't know. She's a complicated person. We're all complicated people. So that is definitely a book that has stuck in my mind because I'm not sure how to feel about her. Yeah, that brought it all back up again. Okay, so what's next on my to be read pile? I'm currently finishing off the Stone Knife trilogy by Anna Stevens, which is it's a glorious, sprawling fantasy. It's fascinating, full of war and magic and wonderful things, with a very, very South American kind of jaguar god, snake god kind of feel to it. If you like that kind of thing, check it out. It's 3 books. It's a long read, but it's a good read. I think it's been worth it. So I talked about that in my 2024 wrap up if you want to go and learn a bit more, but I really have been enjoying this, and I'm about halfway through the final book at the moment, so that's going well. But when I finish that, I have got one lined up. It's called The Gods of Jade and Snow by Silvia Marino Garcia, and I think that the cover looks sumptuous. It is a delicious cover, and it's continuing a South American vibe here. So just reading it, the Mayan god of death sends a young woman on a harrowing, life-changing journey in this dark, one-of-a-kind fairy tale inspired by Mexican folklore. That sounds right up my alley. I love folklore, so dark, mysterious, life-changing, that sounds good to me. So that is next on my to be read pile. Okay, so just to wrap up, I'm going to tag in 3 friends. Heather Reeds, who posts very interesting literary conundrums and moral dilemmas on her channel, which I find really entertaining. Beyond Books, who is the channel that started the Christmas book tag that I did a few weeks ago. And I'm also going to tag in Page Turners with Katja. So Katja is somebody that I was recently introduced to by Margaret. She sort of went, oh, you guys like the same things, you'll get on. So I'm going to tag those 3 in and enjoy. But if you would like to make a video or just answer the questions below, I shall leave the prompts in the comments and you can just join in. Okay guys, so that's been fun. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you like the cover design. Yeah, I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye, toodaloo, toodle pip. Mwah.